podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red from Nottinghamshire Live. My name is Matt Davies, hosting as normal to look back on the latest Forest game and look ahead to the January transfer window a little bit in the company of, first of all, Reds legend Garry Birtles. Hello, Garry, can you hear me?
Good morning. Just about, yes.
Good.
Modern technology is not too clever this morning.
It's okay. And second guest this week returning to the show is BBC Radio Nottingham's main sports presenter, David Jackson. Hello, David. Are you well?
I'm well. I can hear you loud and clear. No problems this end whatsoever. We're all good.
There might be a lot of David Jackson in the next 45 minutes or so. So we're going to look back, shall I say, on Forest's 2-0 win against Peterborough, which takes them to 13th in the Championship, 6 points off the playoffs, ahead of games against Swansea away and Hull at home before we get into Christmas. Garry, you were at the game as one of the guests of honour of the club. What did you make of it overall?
I think first half we were second best. I think Peterborough were the better side. They moved it quicker. They looked more incisive. I think if they had an out-and-out goal scorer, we might have had a bit of trouble. They had a couple of half chances, should have done better with them in good areas, but they didn't. And, you know, when teams do that and they don't take advantage of the opportunities they get, you have to take advantage of that. And second half, we did that without a doubt. We're the better side and deserved to win it.
What did you make of it, David? Did you feel like Forest were going to win the game? I mean, I was following from afar and always felt pretty chilled out they were going to win eventually, given Peterborough's record. Did it feel like that in the ground?
It felt like as soon as they got the first, they'd be okay. I was a little bit surprised, disappointed really in the way that they played in the first half. I think they'd had those 3 games in 7 days, and then you sort of thought, well, okay, you know, they've got a week off now. They've got all the players back. You've got a whole week of, you know, training with Steve Cooper. And I sort of thought a home game against Peterborough, who've been conceding a lot of goals this season, I sort of expected them to be a little bit sharper from the start, and they weren't really. And as Garry said, you know, first half, Peterborough was second best. And I think we all think that probably Steve Cooper had a few words for them at half time. And they came out. I just felt second half that once they got one, it would have to open up a little bit. And in the end, that kind of is what happened. You know, they got one and then they went and got the second and won it. I never felt massively worried by Peterborough, I don't think. And you always know with them that they're likely to concede a goal or two. They're averaging conceding 2 a game. And talking to my BBC colleague who follows them week after week, just says that because they've got very little up front, as Garry alluded to there, because they've got very little up front, the ball spends an awful lot of time in their own third, so they're bound to concede eventually, really. And I think that's kind of ultimately what happened. And they got the result in the end. They got there in the end. That was what mattered, really.
How did Forest look going forwards, Garry? They're 2-0 before the game. Did they look like they'd had enough ideas to break Peterborough down?
First half, it was a little bit lethargic. It was slow, and that was the difference between the teams. You watch Peterborough, and when they got the ball, they moved it quickly. It's 1 and 2 touches. We were a bit ponderous at times. I think we're taking too many touches on the ball. When the ball was on to be played early, it wasn't. I don't think Lewis was given enough support and service, and especially in the first half, his work rate was good. He was gesticulating all the time, telling people to close down behind him. But yeah, it was a flat first 45 minutes, and I think the problem with that is everybody who comes to the City Ground get 28,500 people there. That atmosphere, it lifts the opposition as well. That's the problem. You know, they get lifted by that magnificent noise at the City Ground, and it sometimes can work against Forest. And I think the pressure because of that is on the team, and they realise that. And like David said, I think once the first one went in, but it was late going in. It wasn't an early goal in the second half. We looked to relax a little bit, and they were under the cosh a wee bit. But yeah, it's weird that 28,000 people at the City Ground put pressure on yourself.
It's a bit mad, isn't it, David? I mean, 28,000 for a mid-table Championship club. I know the trajectory on the graph is very much upward under Steve Cooper, but there's not many clubs in the Championship that are going to get that kind of attendance, are they, on a chilly December day?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons, really. I mean, they've been getting big crowds, haven't they, this season since Steve Cooper arrived, consistently well over 20,000. I think there's 2 things. There's one, which is probably the main reason, which is something Garry and I spoke about before the game, really, which is that feeling of optimism that's been created around supporters, the feeling of excitement of you're going to go down on a Saturday, you are going to see your team giving everything, playing some attractive football, hopefully scoring a goal or two. You know, there's that confidence in getting a product for your money when you go down and see them play. I think there is also the other element of the fact that fans obviously weren't in grounds for a long time and able to go and watch any football whatsoever. So now they've had a taste of it and coming back, and the products they're getting is good. I think that there is a desire to get down there and see. And you're right. I mean, 28,000, you know, for Peterborough. I remember a few years back there being in similar sorts of conditions, that kind of weather, that sort of cold. I think it was Rotherham, and they got about 12, 13, 14,000, something like that. So, you know, small crowds. But these days, there's just that feeling that something's happening down there. There's a feeling that if you get on board now, you're seeing something happen, even though it's not perfect and results haven't always even gone their way over the last few weeks. Now, there have been reasons for that at times, with some dodgy penalty decisions that Forest should have had and didn't get. But you sense when you go down at the moment that at the very least, you're going to get to see some entertainment. You're going to get to see some nice football. You're going to get to see the team trying to do the things that you want your team to do. And that's all fans ask for, really, isn't it? Even if at the end of it you don't win. You know, I remember seeing a lot of faces after the Fulham 4-0, but there were still a lot of fans saying, well, okay, we saw them give it a go at the end. We saw the sort of effort that we want to see, even though it didn't happen today. That's what you want, and that's what fans are getting at the moment, and that's why they're turning up in their numbers.
Did you feel like when you spoke to a lot of fans, I guess, on Saturday, Garry, with what you were doing work-wise, did you feel that sense of optimism that maybe wasn't there on previous visits to the ground?
I think you've got to say yes to that without a doubt. I mean, it's the same squad as, well, very similar squad to Chris's, but the transformation from that period to now is just, you know, ridiculously good. And it's not just about that 11 out on the pitch. I think, you know, Steve has embraced the whole football club, not just now, the past, not just our generations, but the generations that have come through as well after us. I think he wants to go right, you know, through that history and see why the club has become what it has. And it's apparently it's not just about the first team; it's about every person at the football club. You know, it's very easy just to focus on that one thing, but you know, people tell you about the academy, that, you know, the interest he's taking in the younger players and things like that, and that's the thing you want to hear. It's got to be an overall thing, and Steve seems to have taken to it like a duck to water at the club, because it's a big club still. You know, the reputation it's got coming in and taking over, and again, maybe being the one who has to take us that one step further that we've been craving for so many years. And at the moment, with those same bunch of players, he's got 6 points off the playoffs. People were talking about, Forest are drawing too many games, but careful what you wish for. I said this at the weekend. About 3 months ago, 2.5, 3 months ago, people would have taken a 0-0 against West Brom, would have taken a draw against Reading. You know, you just snap your hand off to get those results. And now, you know, it's got that much better under Steve, and you're thinking, well, you know, we should have won that. We should have done better here. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a work in progress, and the work has started very, very well indeed. We've seen that, and you know, we look at teams that are difficult to beat. You know, we don't concede. You know, defensively, you know, we're doing well. Bryce Sambers, you know, he's come back to his previous form. I thought he was very unfairly treated by people, because the way things were going, we were so defensive minded that all he was trying to do as a goalkeeper was trying to take pressure off defenders by coming out and trying to, you know, say, right, I'll take care of this. And I was at Leeds yesterday, Brentford, and the goalkeepers there, they were flying out. They were making mistakes, you know. So it happens at the highest level. But he looks, you know, a lot more confident. The players in front of him, because of that, are confident. And, you know, it's just really good to see that the progress Steve's made is very evident in front of everybody.
Can I just ask you a question as well, Matt? Sorry to interrupt. I just wonder, you know, we talked about Forest being a bit lethargic going forward, Garry. Do you think any of that is due to the formation? Because what we've seen from Forest, how devastating they've been going forward when Steve Cooper first took over. We saw those wing backs, you know, Max Lowe, who's now out injured, and Jed Spence on the right, and you get two players quite high up on each wing, and it was devastating to watch. It was brilliant. And then we've gone with a change, obviously, with Maxlow injured and Jack Colback kind of sitting in at left back. You've not got that up high the wing. Is that a reason? Maybe is that a reason why Forest have not looked quite so lively going forward? Is that?
No,
is that
I think you've got to give opposition credit here as well. They know how good Forest have been. Teams have had to change the way they look at how Forest play, because under Chris, it was defensive minded. It was a little bit predictable. We knew there was one up front who was going to be isolated, so that was quite comfortable for oppositions to, look at during the week, plan for. But now they're having to do more homework on Forest because of the transformation, because of the players who come in and what they're offering and what they're giving going forward. Now, the striker rarely gets ice.
Oh, we lost Garry.
No, he's got a phone call, I think, which probably cuts his mic
Right.
out.
Hello.
Hello, you're back. Do you get a phone call? Can you not hear us? I'm going to boot Garry. We're going to boot you out, and you come back in. David, I'm going to ask a question of you. I
thought what Garry was saying just before, not long before he sort of went quiet on us about Bree Samber's interesting. I think Bree Samber, all of a sudden, he lost his place to Ethan Horvath, of course, for that game against Middlesbrough, and he's come back and has been outstanding, and not just outstanding as a goalkeeper, but outstanding as a sweeper as well. There can't be another goalkeeper in the division with distribution as consistently good as him, and quick distribution as well. As soon as he gets the ball, looking up to see where he can bowl the ball out. What such strong arms he's got to deliver a perfect throw out, to the halfway line, reminiscent of Peter Schmeichel in his days when he used to do that at Manchester United. It's brilliant. And then, you see him on the floor kicking the ball. I just think what he's brought to the team since getting his form back has just been brilliant. And I think that's helped the confidence of the defence in front of him. And now we're finally seeing Worrell and McKenna as a partnership. We were desperate to see that a lot last season, weren't we? Do you remember McKenna kept getting injured? They never quite got long as a partnership. And now we're seeing those two as a partnership. Bree Samber in great form. And that's massively helping. And why they've only conceded, what is it, one goal in 5 now Forest have let in. It's brilliant.
I apologise for that. It's my son trying to get in touch with me. I've got my front door lock is broke. It doesn't work. So we're trying to get the locksmith. And he's texted me and tried to phone me there, and he put his name in as when he was a younger man as Sexy Mobile. So anybody can see anything on there. That's my son's handiwork. So
well, there you go. That's something the listeners needed to know.
Yeah, well there you are. Just in case anybody can see it on when it came up.
No.
If I ever got a call from someone called Sexy Mobile, I'd be in all sorts of trouble. So I'm glad that you're all right. That's fine.
Yeah, you can tell he fancies himself.
What I was going to ask before, one thing I find interesting about Cooper is around interviews, David. You might have noticed this. There's kind of this thing around he respects the opposition, but there's that kind of "but we're Nottingham Forest" mentality. Where he kind of embraces the stature of the club a lot more than previous managers. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably fair. But he does do that a lot. I mean, he is always respectful of the opposition, and he talked at the weekend about Peterborough and how he knows Darren Ferguson, the work that he's done over some time at Peterborough, and he's done a lot of good work there. But yeah, you're right. He's also aware of the fact that Forest are in form, have got real threats themselves, and I think he's given that confidence to the players that look, you are good players. He's given them freedom to express themselves, which they've done brilliantly, and so yeah, I think we're seeing Forest, maybe the players as well, take it on themselves to think, actually, we're really good. And maybe there wasn't that confidence there for the year before, where they've been sort of told to hold it back a bit. Whereas now it's like, just go for it. You're better than that. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. You see Ryan Yates further up the pitch, for example. You see players taking a few more risks, and so I think that confidence is instilled in the players, and I think fans love to hear it because you hear the manager say, "Yep, we are good enough to beat anybody." And that's proven right. They could easily have beaten West Brom if they'd have just been, a bit brighter on the night. And So it's fully justified, and I think you're right. I think that approach, certainly, because I think fans always felt with Chris Hughton, the sort of comments he was making were almost more about the opposition than what his own team were capable of, and I think that sort of ground some supporters down. Certainly, that's the reaction we got from fans anyway. I think you've had the same.
What do you make of the news last week, Gary? Then, when I talk about this optimism, there's 28,000 in the ground, and now the renewed planning permission's gone in. Is that exciting as a former player when it comes to the new stand potentially?
Well, it'll just complete the whole thing, won't it? It'll make it, absolutely fantastic, and that needs to be done. It was always going to be done, hopefully, and you've got to praise the owner for that, because without the owner promising that and saying it's going to happen, then it wouldn't have happened. COVID couldn't have come at a worse time in that respect as well, because it puts it on the back burner, and then you think, well, is it going to happen? If Mr. Marinakis decided, he was going to pull out or whatever. But it's great to think that it is going to happen, and it's going to be the Pete Taylor stand as well. So Pete deserves to be recognised for his part in what happened all those years ago, and it's great to see it in the pipeline and hopefully coming to fruition.
Back to the game itself. You probably get a lot of comments on team selection, David, when it all starts. Garner as an advanced midfielder, what did you make of his performance? Oh, we've lost David. We're not having a good day today. Gary, what did you make of Garner's performance as an advanced midfielder?
I think he did okay. I think the midfield, especially second half, was okay. The lad in the middle, what's it? I forgot his name.
Eder.
Pardon?
Eder.
Yeah, I thought he did very well. I thought he tried everything to try and get things moving. He was, he was a little live wire. He was trying to make things happen. And you've got to get used to playing with different colleagues and in different positions. And we've been a little bit unfortunate with injuries when things were going particularly well. So once we get a full squad back, which hopefully we will, going into the Christmas and January period, then you could see a run put together, because the squad is looking good. I think up front still needs a little bit of a tweak. And I think that's always going to be a talking point, because the age of the two lads up front, they always they give their all, but I think you need something else in there, another go-to player if at all possible. And I'm sure that's top of Steve's wish list in January. And he's good with players, he's good at picking players, and I'm sure. I'm hopeful that somebody comes in and it will add to what we've already got and push us forward, because there is an opportunity there. The top two seem to be running away with it at the moment, but the other places, they're up for grabs. 6 points is nothing. You have a good Christmas period, all of a sudden people see you creeping up behind them, and their nerves go a little bit, and it happens. And let's just be hopeful. I mean, we would never have been talking about this. We never thought we'd be talking about where we are in the league at the moment. 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago even. And now we're talking about, right, we could be in the playoffs. That's how quickly things have turned around. And, I'm just looking forward to the progress Steve's still going to make, and, what happens in January.
One of the players, we'll stick on transfers for a minute then. One of the players they're linked with is Adam Eder at Norwich, who's kind of a hustling, bustling, occupying defenders type striker in the mould of Taylor. Does that make sense to you? A young lad who might benefit from a loan move. Is that the kind of thing Forest are going to be in for? Why
not? Let's try that. Get some loan signings in, and from a higher league, obviously they're going to have quality. You hope they're going to have quality, and it could be the final piece, in the jigsaw going through into the new year. Obviously, the FA Cup starts coming into the equation at that point, which, if you're doing well in the league, can be a little bit of a problem. But Forest have got a big squad. I would have liked at the weekend to have seen maybe Carvalho at some point. Because I think, a lot of people have been talking about, what sort of impact he could have under Steve, because he's a lot was expected before. It didn't happen. He didn't get played a great deal, but I think it'd be very interesting to see how he performed.
Oh, David, we've probably discussed Carvalho to death, even with every single guest we've had on. So please give us your take on Carvalho.
Yes, apologies for that. I dropped out a couple of times, but it wasn't because of any phone calls from anybody with the name Sexy in the title. Nothing to do with that.
Mrs. Jackson might watch this, yeah.
Other technical problems existed there. We were talking about Carvalho during the commentary actually on Saturday. We wondered whether he might just be somebody to bring on in a game like that when you needed somebody to just unlock something. And he was about to bring Alex Mighton on just at the point that Forest scored. He was already by the side of the pitch about to come on, and again probably for that same reason, that he was just thinking it needs something. It needs a little bit of a spark. It needs something. The thing with Carvalho is clearly he can do little moments of magic. It's what he provides the rest of the time. But a game like that, maybe when you just need a little bit of something, maybe he could be useful in that. I just wonder now. There's been so many managers. He's had so many different managers, and none of them have been able to find much of a use for him. We saw just at the end of Martin O'Neill's time, when he put him in for the last few games, and he played really well, didn't he, for the last few? And he played a few games before. We've never seen any manager sort of get hold of him and see him play consistently well and consistently useful in a lot of areas as a central midfielder. He's taking up a place in the team, and if he's not giving a lot in that, then you start to think, could someone else do better? But I remember with him, a game against Sheffield United. Forest won it 1-0, and it was a bit of magic from him and a cross that Grabban nodded into the corner, and Forest win 1-0. So you think, well, if that's all he's done and Forest have won 1-0 out of it, then fair enough. But I think Gary's right. A game like that, where you're needing a little bit of magic, you're needing somebody just to unlock something, maybe that's where you use him. But we've not seen him for so long. How would he do if you did throw him in a game like that? I guess we'll never know now.
What did you make of the midfield balance on Saturday? Then Garry was praising Eder while you were not with us for a while, with Garner as a slightly more advanced midfielder, and a lot of praise for Yates. Does that look a reasonable balance, or is it maybe a bit too defensive to play too often?
I liked Eder as well. I thought that he's 2 games we've seen him now. I think he's shown some nice touches. I think particularly in his first one. I thought the first half against Luton, he kept things fairly simple, and then in the second half we saw him go on a couple of little runs. Really reminds me of Radi Majewski in this, just like his centre of balance and the way he moves. He just looks a little bit like that. Had a decent shot on goal as well, just over the bar. So he's obviously growing in confidence in that team as well. I like him. I think Ryan Yates has just been absolutely outstanding, especially since Steve Cooper arrived. I think he's just been absolutely brilliant. He's grown in stature in that midfield. He's just brilliant. I'm absolutely loving watching him play at the moment. The consistency levels are there with him as well, and that's what I really like. I think Eder, probably, if you bring another left back in, I think Colback was playing so well in midfield, and you go back to his performance at QPR where he was, Reading, where he was outstanding. QPR, he pops up with a goal as well in that central midfield role. I really, I think you'd probably want to try and get him back in there if you can. But yeah, I think they've got options in midfield. I don't think midfield is much of an issue for Forest at the moment. I completely agree with Garry up front. I think, you think Lewis Grabban's going to turn 34 in January. I'd be surprised, I think, if he's a Forest player again next season, because, he'll be on big wages from when he signed a few years ago. Things have changed at the club since then. And you're also looking anyway in January to be bringing in, you'd hope, a young striker or two to provide a bit of support for Lewis Grabban. We've seen a bit of Lyle Taylor in and out, but I just think if you've got a young, hungry one, and I know that you've been reporting about Adam Eder, the Norwich player, so somebody like that to go in there and provide a bit of competition and a different option off the bench, then that's what Forest need. That's where they're sort of lacking a little bit, and I think they're definitely going to need to sort out something around the fullback wing-back's position, depending on what happens with both of those two who are on loan, of course.
Tough market.
I think you're right about Ryan Yates. I think he looks so relaxed now than he did before. I think he was like a coiled spring before. He was there waiting to, try and burst out of his skin almost. And I think he's been allowed to do that. And he looks a totally different player because of that. You go out there and if you relax, you're going to perform better. If you go out there all tight and tense, you're not. You're going to make mistakes. Your first touch is not going to be good. You'll try and hit the ball too hard. I always say, when I'm commentating, take a bit of pace off the ball and you will at least hit the target. Players just try and go and blast it as hard as they can. And I think that's, how Ryan was trying to play the game. He was expected to fly into challenges and he was getting booked for them. He was getting stick because of that, unfairly in my book, because, I think he was trying to do the right thing. But now, I think the confidence he has that he's been given by the manager is just so obvious for everybody to see out there. And, I just hope he can progress. And I think he will progress. I think he'll just get more confident in himself and in what he can do and believe in himself. And that's what Steve's bought. He's bought that ability to say to players, right, go on. It's similar to Brian Clough. I'm not worried what you can't do. I'm worried, I just want you to go and do what you can do. What you can't do doesn't really matter, and when you've got that as a player in your mind as a player and you go out with that in your mind, you feel a whole lot better because you're not afraid of making mistakes for the right reasons. And, I think Ryan he's playing with a smile on his face and, he's a key player at the moment.
And he keeps getting in the box, Gary. I know you've taken me to task for commenting on his occasional 50p heads, but he does keep getting in the box and he got his rewards on Saturday, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and that's good to see. It's about gambling at the right time. You don't have to go in every time. It's about thinking, well, this time I've got to go. There's something on here, that I can do. Not going, sort of willy nilly every time because it's not going to work every time. But that's instinct. That's when you're out there, only when that's right to do. And he has the ability to do that. And it's a dying art, midfield players, timing their runs into the box. I always talk about Gerrard and Lampard. They're the last two for me. But I played with some, fabulous players at doing that. Steve Hodge, Neil Webb, Ian Bowyer, people like that, Archie Gemmell. They could do that. They could time their runs into the box. They knew when to do it. And it is an art form. And, it's great to see him doing it.
We haven't seen them score many goals. Sorry, we haven't seen them score that many goals. I wish I'd got the stats to hand now, but I haven't. But it's nice to see Forest scoring from a set piece, isn't it? Because you think that whenever Forest gets set piece, you see Joe Warren and Scott McKenna go up, but we've not really seen them get many goals. And I'm not criticising them for that at all. They've been absolutely outstanding. But Ryan Yates has got up. He scored one at Birmingham, didn't he? But to get on the end of one from a set piece there as well. It's just good to see Forest doing that, because as much as we love to see them playing the lovely football and creating opportunities, it's quite nice to take advantage of having a set piece and getting a goal from it as well. Because I'm not sure what the stats say, and I might be completely wrong here, but it feels like watching them that maybe we don't get as many goals, Forest, from set pieces as perhaps they could.
It depends a lot on delivery, doesn't it, Gary? I think the delivery's been very hit and miss. For Garner takes a pretty decent corner. It just annoys me so much, the one at the near post that doesn't even beat the man at the near post. Players now try to be too precise with it. You don't need to be precise. All you have to do is look at a video of John Robertson or David Beckham. They never tried to pick anybody out. They put it in an area where they knew their teammates would attack. Simple as. There's no, even at the highest level. I was doing Italian football and Spanish for Sky, and some of the deliveries were just absolutely dreadful. And these are players who are playing at the top of the profession, and even they can't get it right. I mean, I was at Leeds yesterday, and Patrick Bamford scored off his knee in the 95th minute, and the only reason that happened is because the corner was so good. It was whipped in, it was flicked on, and there was Bamford, just hit him and went in off the underside of the bar. You don't have to pick people out. If you whip it in at a decent height, somebody in your team can get across the near post, get a touch on like they did yesterday, and you get yourself a goal. Simple as. But the number of times it doesn't beat the first man, and it just winds everybody. It winds me up particular because, I was a striker. I was beholden on service, and I had the best in the business. I had O'Neill one side and Robertson the other side. And I played at Grimsby. I had a lad called David Gilbert on one side and Gary Childs on the other, both wingers, and their delivery was absolutely superb.
They never try to pick anybody out. They just put it in an area, and if you weren't in that area, that was your fault. They'd done their job. So I was lucky in that respect to have played at different levels with players who could do that.
Just one last thing on transfers in January, David. It's a tricky market, isn't it? I know Forest have got a left back on trial, Loris Benito, at the moment, who they might sign. And it's hard. There's not many good free agents out there, so they need time to get up to speed. And then the loan market's tricky, isn't it? Like you were saying around Graben, if you're going to bring a second striker in on loan, you probably know they're going to play second fiddle. So clubs are kind of reluctant to let them go. And then this young lad's got to come in and do good 15-minute cameos, probably as the second striker if Taylor drops down the pecking order. I mean, Forest have done well in the loan window for the most part in last year, but it's going to be a tricky window for Cooper to get the players he needs to push them up the table, isn't it, David?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends how much these players are playing for their own teams, doesn't it? And if they've been told that maybe they've not got much of a future at the club they're at, then maybe they just think, well, go out to Forest and think there's a team on the up. There's a team who have got third best form at the moment in the Championship since Steve Cooper arrived. You think there's a team that as a striker, you might be able to go there. You might get some opportunities, score some goals, even if you're not necessarily first choice, but think, well, actually, I might be able to get plenty of football under my belt in that time, and maybe either secure a permanent move to Forest or get somewhere else. So that there'll always be players who want that, because why wouldn't you want to join a team who are going well in the Championship for a few months and go there and try and score some goals? If you're not getting much football where you are at the moment, or if you've been told that perhaps you're not going to be in those clubs' plans beyond the end of the season, so there will be options. It is just difficult to find somebody who is going to score you a lot of goals available for loan in January, because if they're that sort of player, they're probably not the sort of player that club wants to let go on loan in January. I mean, it's just obvious, isn't it? So it's always a really, really hard month to be able to get players. But there will be some around, and full well that, judging by Forest recruitment in the summer and the sort of players that they were brought in and how good they've been for Forest, that you sort of back that recruitment, and you'd back Steve Cooper's contacts to be able to add to that, and you'd think that they'll be able to bring in players in January who can add what they want, and also have confidence that that they'd fit into the way Forest play, because they've got this way and it's working. And I just think I think they'll be okay, but it isn't going to be somebody who's already scoring goals in League One, for example. I wouldn't have thought. It isn't going to be somebody who's playing and scoring goals in the Premier League. You're not going to get them either. So you've got to get what you can in January. But I think they need somebody. So a young player who's hungry for it and wanting a few months of Championship football, that Forest will take that gladly, and that's kind of what the sort of thing they've got to be looking for, I think.
I think that addition will be massive, and I think people want to come to Nottingham Forest because of Steve Cooper, because of his reputation, the way he's worked with younger players before, that he gives them the opportunity, and I don't see it as a problem for people wanting to come. It's a club that are on the up at the moment. They're moving up the table. They're not in a predicament like they've been in the past couple of years. So it's a perfect place to come at the moment. And I think Steve will give them the opportunity. If they're good enough, he'll throw them in and say, right, okay, you're all fighting for your places now. Because goals haven't been flowing of late. Was it the last two nil? Yeah, it was 0-0, was it, against Luton and
West Brom?
And West Brom, yeah. So no goals in those two games. They're two good teams. I mean, you look at Luton's result at the weekend again. They're a team that are so difficult to beat. They're a decent outfit. They've got a good manager, a good assistant manager, and a good coach in Chris Cohen. Paul Hart, the Forest connections down there. So, yeah, I think it's quite attractive coming to Nottingham Forest at this particular moment in time. And I think players will want to, and I think their agents hopefully will tell them, look, they've got a manager in there who's turned this around so quickly. He's positive. He wants to play the right way, and just go there. And if you get the chance to get in there, you've got a really good opportunity to show everybody how good you are. And that's the idea for me of a loan move. You know, if you're going to have a loan move, you've got to do it for the right reasons as a player. You've got to go and say, right, if I get my opportunity here, I am going to show my club who I've come from and anybody else who's interested how good I am. Because, you know, that's an opportunity. If you're not getting one at your own club, it's a great opportunity to go out there and prove a point.
Isn't it the difficulty though, Gary? Not necessarily the players. I completely agree with you. I think the players would look at Forest as a very attractive option at the moment, and I think you're right about, you know, the agents think get them out at the very least into the spotlight for a few months. But it's the clubs, isn't it? It's the clubs if they've got a player, it depends what sort of caliber player you're going for, isn't it? The sort of player that Forest might be after, unfortunately, might not be the type that the clubs want to let go for a few months in January. So it's just finding that balance, isn't it? Finding a player who is going to add something sufficiently to Forest to try and push them towards.
I'll tell you what, David, why would you want to keep one of your players playing under 23 football? Why would you want to? Because I've been told it's not particularly good. Yeah. It's not like we've talked about the old Central League before. It's not like you're going into a league like that and playing against players who are coming back from injury, you know, seasoned professionals and things like that. You know, the standard of football, I've been told, is not, you know, brilliant. So why wouldn't you let your players go out on loan? Makes perfect sense.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. You might get somebody who's playing under 23s, but I'm thinking of if Forest are looking for somebody, you know, we talked about Eder before at Norwich, who's kind of been in and around the first team. Players like Tyler Roberts at Leeds, who's kind of been in and around it as well. Are they going to let them go? Those that are kind of on the verge of.
Well, they won't let Tyler Roberts go. He scored yesterday.
Yeah, he's not now. You know,
he played well yesterday. He did well.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Those who are kind of on the verge of a first team in the Premier League, who Forest might be wanting to add sufficiently to what they've got at the moment, they're going to be hard to get. So what sort of calibre are you going to get? Is it, if you get somebody from a Premier League under 23s, are they going to be able to come in and hit the ground running and get what you want from them for the rest of the Championship? I'm not saying they wouldn't, because that's where the recruitment comes in, and finding a player who's capable of stepping into that first team at Forest and doing a job immediately. Because that's what you need. You need to be able to come in and do a job straight away, don't you?
I guess Rhian Brewster's the example there, an under 23s player who can do it, but it's just probably more of an unknown quantity, isn't it? You don't know quite what you're going to get. I suppose Norwich, go back to Norwich, they sent Jordan Hugill out on loan to West Brom, who's, you know, done pretty well in the Championship. Not done much for West Brom, but I do agree what you're saying about the hits and miss of the loan market. It's going to be a tricky one. I just want to take a couple of viewer questions before we go, sort of on forwards. Mark Fox asks, do you think Brennan Johnson needs a rest? He was quiet at the weekend. He did set up the first goal, though, with a very good cross. I don't know, what do you think, Gary? There's so much expectation around the young man, isn't there? He's still, like I say, put up an assist at the weekend. He's still doing well. He
is, without a doubt. Yeah, he's going to be tired, but again, give the opposition the credit here. People look at, you know, games that Forest play, and they'll turn it upside down to try and nullify the major threats. And he is a major threat, and they will try anything they can to stop him. You know, the number of times I've seen him kicked and, you know, knocked to the floor, and that's, you know, a compliment to him, because sometimes that's the only way you can stop people like that. You know, he keeps getting back up. You know, he never complains, which is great to see. And I just think he's loving every minute of being in the team when he gets his opportunity, and he never shirks responsibility for me either. I think he thrives on being in the first team, and you know, he's got a good dad behind him as well, who knows exactly what he's talking about. And yeah, you're going to get kicked. You're going to have your little off days, and there's going to be expectation. We've talked about it. You know, Alex Mighton as well. You know, it's going to happen, but you have to be aware of that. You know, that's your job. You know, that's part and parcel of playing professional football. You know that's going to happen, and if you don't like it, there's no point in playing professional football, because it happens. People do kick you, but it's about the bouncing back, and doing what he did to set up the goal is the perfect answer to being kicked from pillar to post. And you know, he'll keep doing that. And I think he might get rested over the Christmas period, because you know the games do come thick and fast. And you can't expect players to play now, I suppose, in every game. You know, you're looking to rotate a little bit, which I've never been a great fan of, because I love playing every game. And you didn't do that nowadays on those pitches. You just love playing every game. You know, we play 3-4 games a week at times, because the pitches were that bad, they were called off, and then you had to get them played. So it wasn't a problem, and I don't think it is for Brennan either. I think he loves being out there. If you asked him, would you like a rest? I'm sure his answer would be a emphatic no, without a doubt. So yeah, Steve will know. He'll see signs in training. It's not just about on the pitch on a Saturday; it's about training as well. How is his training going? And the coaches look at that. He's got a really good backroom staff, Steve, and they all know what the professional game's about. So yeah, it's just keep him in there, and unless he says, "Look, I'm just feeling a bit shattered, a bit fatigued," but I don't think he will. He's not that sort of a lad.
Second question, Hussein asks about Worrell and Johnson will be with beyond the January transfer window, which sort of leads into Worrell as we run out of time. I want to talk about Worrell's form is tremendous. Scott McKenna's sort of gone under the radar. I mean, this is a frivolous question, but is McKenna actually better than Worrell, David? Because he doesn't have to make these flying, sliding blocks that Worrell does, which look class. But McKenna reads the game so well that maybe he's not as flashy as Worrell in terms of being a defender. And there's a case we made that...
I'm sure Joe will be quite taken aback by the flashy comment there.
He loves the flashy crossfield ball as well, Joe does.
When he sees you next, I'd tell you that now.
No, Worrell's brilliant. I suppose
no, you said flashy.
Flashy. Well, it's a bit flashy for defenders to be sliding in all the time and pinging 50-yard balls. We don't see that from McKenna. I mean, he comes out with the ball, which is good, but I don't know. What is McKenna a bit underrated against Worrell, I suppose, David?
He's tried those long passes a few times since, hasn't he? Since that goal against Blackpool,
yes.
when that exquisite crossfield pass to pick out Max Lowe before the cross for Johnson for that goal. He's tried it a few times since. It's not produced a goal, I don't think, since then. But yeah, I just think they're both in great form at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, seeing them develop a partnership together is something we were just desperate to see last season, and they'd kind of come in, have a couple of games, and then one of them would get injured. And what we're seeing from Scott McKenna now is game after game after game is actually playing, because last year he had a few injuries and he was just settling in, and and in a team that was struggling, and now he's in a team that's playing well. He's in a team with a goalkeeper in great form behind him, and whether he's in the back three or in that back four, I think McKenna's been an absolute rock. I think he's been absolutely brilliant, and I think Joe Worrell has been as well. And I think it's just great to get to see those two together. I've liked it with Figueiredo as well. I think Figueiredo's been good last few weeks. We've seen him play, because he was prone to errors. It has been certainly over the last year or two. We've seen quite a few errors from him and given away a few penalties, and but in that back three, he's looked a lot more solid. With both of them next to him. But both Worrell and McKenna at the moment, I'm not going to say which one's better, Matt. You know that. I mean, how can I possibly turn up and interview Joe Worrell next week and they would go, you said on that podcast, Matt, that McKenna was better than me. I'm not going to do that.
David, it's not about being better at all. It's they complement each other. They're that good. They know each other's game. You look after your mate. You did that as a striker. You did that as a centre half. Who was better, Lloyd or Burns? They complemented each other. That's pure and simple. You have to get that right combination at centre half. And when we played two up front all those years ago, it was so important to get those two partnerships right. If you got those right, you got half a chance, because you're built from the back. And if you got two centre halves who complemented each other, you knew you got half a chance. And like you said, the goalkeeper behind Bryce he's come back to the goalkeeper we knew he was. And it's not about being better. It's about how you play alongside your mate. And they're both vocal, which is good. I like to see vocality out there. You don't see enough of it. And it's not just the two of them. It's to everybody around. You can see that it's happening on the pitch. And Michael Dawson used to ping a 50, 60-yard ball, diagonal ball, brilliantly. So then Kenny Burns did exactly the same. He was a great striker of a ball because he was a striker as well. So it's nice to see that centre halves are trying this. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We talk about goalkeepers now. They have to ping it 60 yards to feet, and they have to be able to, have a good first touch as a goalkeeper. So it's progression in the game, and I'm just glad we've got two such good centre halves. Probably, is there any better combination in the Championship? I'm not sure there is.
No, I don't think there is. But do you prefer the 3 or the 4 at the back, Gary? I actually prefer the 3 with Figueiredo in the middle. I think I feel a bit more comfortable with the wing backs.
I think that looked more productive, didn't it? It looked better because you got the solidity of those 3 at the back, and it gives the wing backs the the knowledge of that they've got those 3 there that they can bomb forward and join in and cause havoc in the final third. So in that respect, it does look a better formation. I think 4 at the back can be predictable. You're a little bit worried to commit, full backs when you've got that system in case the opposition just put the ball where they've gone, which good oppositions do that. So, but it's good that he's got the choice of those systems, and when he's got everybody fit, I'm sure he'll play that 3 at the back again because it works very well.
I think that's a key point though, Gary, isn't it? Is when everybody's fixed at the moment, you wonder kind of who's going to do that left wing back role, because Max Lowe did it so well on that side, but without him there isn't really anybody else who can directly fill that. Jack Colback does a great job at left back, but he doesn't do the same sort of up and down job that Max Lowe did, and the same sort of thing that Spence did on the right. And you think, who else is there that can go into that? You could put Lolly wide left, but he's not got that defensive side to his game. You think of the other players that they could bring in, your Dragers and players like that, and I'll say Tutu if he's back fit again. But they're naturally, well, I've never seen Drager yet, but I'll say Tutu naturally a right back. You bring out onto the left. There's nobody in Forest have got at the moment who can do a job at left wing back in anything like the way that Max Lowe was doing it, is there? So you wonder whether they can play that system properly again and until he's back. I wonder.
How long was he out for? Do we know?
It was a couple of months when he was out, wasn't it? They said a couple of months.
Right.
Yeah. I think it sounds like they like Osei Tutu, but he's been injured a lot. And Gaetan Bong has done his best, but he's not the solution as a wing back, is he, to be fair, unfortunately. Right. Any other business, Gary, before we go? Anything you want to moan about? Your son calling you or anything else?
No, I'll tell him in no uncertain terms that he was out of order, but... No, nothing. I don't think there's anything else. Just, I went around all the rooms, and there's a lot of hope. I have to be interviewed in 4 different rooms at the ground, and I think the fans are buying into Steve big style as well, and that's why when you hear about we're drawing too many games, you realise somebody's doing something well, and it's just how he's taken on board everything about the football club. That's what I love about him and the backroom staff. They want to know about the stories from when we played. They want to know what it was all about and how it transformed. And that they're always willing to listen. They're always willing to. You're never too old to learn. You can learn from the past. Even 40 years ago. I mean, we've got our 40th anniversary this coming weekend. For the second European Cup win, that was cancelled last year because of the pandemic. And you can learn, you can pick things up from that era. It really annoys me when people say, "Oh, well, it was different in those days." Blah blah blah. Yeah, it was different, but a lot of things were particularly good. And I think Steve wants to embrace all that and listen to that. And anything you can pick up, no matter how small, to make things better, then do it. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to just have your way of doing it. You can pick things up, and I think that's the thing with Steve. He's willing to do things like that, and he's willing to listen and watch and learn and hear, what's gone before, and that's got to be good.
David, any other business?
Just how much I think everybody at the club must be looking forward to going to Swansea, of course, especially Steve Cooper, the day after his birthday. His birthday on Friday, so he's got a birthday celebration Friday, and then Saturday taking Forest to Swansea. So that's going to be fun, isn't it? A little bit of inside knowledge from Cooper. I think that's going to be absolutely fascinating. A long old journey. I'm sure there'll be plenty of fans make it as well. I'm looking forward to that on Saturday, getting down there. And I'm even missing my daughter's birthday party for it. But anyway, that's probably a different.
You better go to Swansea on the train.
Yeah.
The train is far better. Just one stop all the way from Derby or Nottingham.
Right. Well, I think we'll probably drive, just because.
Bad choice. Bad choice.
The radio equipment.
We've got all that. We've got too much gear to carry. You remember that, Gary, from your days? All that gear to carry.
I thought it'd be a lot lighter now than when I was doing it. I thought, the modern technology, it would have been
Do you think our technology's changed in that time? This is the BBC. We don't invest in any of that. It's the same gear you were using, Garry.
Right. Have you got your Christmas trees up? Is it too early to put your Christmas tree up? I've got mine.
No, of course it's not.
Too early.
Mine have been up since the first.
Got it up yesterday.
Oh, it's a nightmare. Kids arguing with each other about how it's got to be done. Little
That's
girl
the spirit,
who was,
isn't it?
well, pretty patterns for a little girl, and little boy who's like chuck it everywhere. Absolute nightmare.
Yeah, mine went up the first. My grandkids came round. My kids helped decorate the trees and everything. They loved it. Yeah, it's all up and running and doing okay.
Good. A good note to end on. A happy festive note from Garry, not my miserable moaning about my own children.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We'll leave it there. Thanks everyone who watched.
Old Ebenezer there.
I love Christmas, actually. Well, the food. I love the food. Right. Garry, thank you very much.
A pleasure.
And David, thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Good to see you.
Cheers.
We shall be back this time next week. Thanks very much, everyone.